The controversial rise of Laura Loomer. From childhood to scandal and love, she's the name that has divided America, sparking debates, controversy, and endless headlines. Love her or hate her, Laura Loomer has made her mark on the political and media world. But who is the woman behind the headlines? Today we dive into the life of Laura Loomer, from her early years to her rise as a media sensation and the scandals that continue to define her. Childhood. Laura Loomer's story doesn't begin with the world of politics, controversy, or media stunts. It begins in the quiet suburbs of Arizona, where she was born on May 21, 1993, to a Jewish family that would play a significant role in shaping the woman she would become. But even in this peaceful setting, it was clear Laura wasn't destined for an ordinary life. From the very beginning, Laura's parents noticed something unique about her. She wasn't like the other children. While most kids played quietly or followed the rules, Laura had an unrelenting sense of independence. She wasn't one to back down from a challenge, nor was she afraid to voice her opinions. At the dinner table, she often engaged in debates that would leave her family members stunned. Little did they know, this fierce nature would eventually set her on a path that would make her one of the most controversial figures of her generation. Growing up, Laura often felt out of place. She was quick to speak up about issues that others wouldn't dare touch, even as a child. Her parents, although supportive, sometimes found it difficult to understand her outspoken nature. It wasn't until her teenage years that Laura's talents would truly begin to shine, though not always in the most conventional way. As a teenager, Laura was known for her sharp wit and her tendency to challenge authority. While most of her peers were concerned with fitting in, Laura was already focused on making a name for herself. She didn't just want to blend in, she wanted to stand out. This desire to be noticed, to be heard, pushed her to become more involved in extracurricular activities. Whether it was debating, writing, or even protesting, Laura made sure her voice was never drowned out by the crowd. Her high school years were marked by a series of events that showcased her bold personality. It wasn't enough for Laura to sit back and let things happen. She had to be part of the conversation. Whether she was speaking out about issues at school or challenging her teachers and peers on their views, Laura was already building the foundation for what would become her larger-than-life presence in the media later on. But it wasn't just her high school activism that caught people's attention. Laura was already becoming deeply influenced by her Jewish heritage, which would later play a significant role in shaping her views on politics, particularly in relation to Israel and the Middle East. She became increasingly vocal about issues related to her faith, and it wasn't long before she started making waves in the world beyond her school. As Laura navigated her teenage years, she also began grappling with the complexities of being raised in a Jewish family. While she was proud of her heritage, she often felt that the world around her misunderstood or even ignored the struggles her community faced. This awareness fueled her determination to stand up for what she believed in, even if it meant going against the grain. Her passion for political activism was growing, but she still had a long way to go before the world would truly take notice. By the time Laura graduated high school, she was ready for the next phase of her life. She moved to Florida, where she attended college, and it was here that her fiery personality would be fully unleashed. Laura wasn't the type to sit quietly in the background during lectures or campus events. No, she was already setting her sights on the bigger stage, and college would serve as the perfect launchpad for her journey into the world of media and activism. The career begins. After years of standing out in high school, Laura Loomer was about to enter a world that would reward those with the boldest, most unconventional voices. But in the halls of higher education, a new challenge awaited her. Laura had already made her mark as someone who would never be content simply going along with the crowd. As she transitioned into adulthood, it became clear that she was driven by something bigger than herself. Attending college in Florida, Laura was not just another student sitting in the back of the classroom. No, she was already setting herself up for a future in the world of journalism, albeit a future that would soon become one of the most controversial paths anyone could take. At college, Laura gravitated toward the world of media. She knew this was the field where she could make her voice heard on a larger scale. But it was not through conventional channels that Laura would rise to fame. No, she would choose the path of disruption, of questioning authority, of constantly challenging the status quo. Her journey began with internships and contributions to various conservative outlets. Laura quickly understood the power of media to shape public opinion, but she also realized that to truly stand out in this world, she would need to do things differently. And so she did. In 2017, Laura's career took a major leap when she became involved with Rebel Media, a Canadian media outlet that catered to the right-wing conservative audience. Rebel Media was notorious for being outspoken and for covering controversial topics that mainstream outlets wouldn't touch. It was the perfect platform for someone like Laura, someone who wasn't afraid to say what others were too scared to. With Rebel Media, Laura's career began to gain real traction. She started gaining recognition for her daring and often confrontational style. Her work wasn't about objective journalism, it was about taking a stance, challenging political correctness, and making her views known in the loudest way possible. And for some, that made her a hero, a champion for free speech. For others, she was a villain, someone who thrived on controversy and division. It was during her time with Rebel Media that Laura really began to make a name for herself in the political world. She was unafraid to challenge the left, calling out what she saw as hypocrisy and double standards. She became known for her willingness to confront people head-on, whether they were politicians, activists, or members of the media. Her confrontational interviews and public stunts were becoming her signature, and the public took notice. One of her most notable stunts occurred in 2017 when she made headlines for ambushing the annual Women's March in Washington, D.C. She wasn't there to participate in the protest. She was there to confront the event's organizers. Armed with questions and a camera, she called out the hypocrisy she saw in the movement, questioning why the women who were protesting didn't seem to speak out against the policies of the left that she believed undermine women's rights. This stunt set the tone for what would become a pattern in Laura's career, confronting the left at their most public and vulnerable moments. Whether it was challenging feminist activists, calling out politicians for their stances on Israel, or exposing what she called the biases of mainstream media, Laura's rise was propelled by her willingness to step into the most dangerous of political battlegrounds. And while many were outraged by her aggressive tactics, there was no denying that her visibility was on the rise. But with fame came backlash. In 2018, Laura found herself banned from major social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The reason? According to the platforms, her content violated their policies on hate speech and harassment. But for Laura, this wasn't a setback, it was a rallying cry. In the face of censorship, Laura took to alternative platforms where her voice could no longer be silenced by the corporate giants of Silicon Valley. She became a champion for free speech, using her own banishment to highlight the dangers of social media control and to argue that voices like hers were being suppressed. The banning only gave her more fuel for her fire, and she began to rally others to her cause. Laura's refusal to be silenced became her rallying cry. She would take on the establishment in every form it took, whether it was the left-wing media, the elites, or big tech companies that she believed were controlling the flow of information. As she built her brand, Laura's messages resonated with a growing audience who felt marginalized by the mainstream media. Her every word became an act of defiance, an expression of individualism and free thought. But it wasn't just the media that Laura sought to challenge. In 2020, she took her battle to the political arena, announcing her candidacy for Congress in Florida's 21st District, a seat once held by former Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Laura's campaign was nothing short of audacious. She wasn't just running for office. She was running to shake up the political system, to disrupt the status quo, and to bring her brand of unapologetic conservatism to Washington. The scandals. Laura Loomer's rise was as rapid as it was controversial. While many saw her as a fearless voice of free speech, others began to view her as a walking scandal, a woman whose every move seemed to ignite outrage, protest, and media backlash. But for Laura, the scandals weren't obstacles. They were opportunities to solidify her place as a figure of resistance against the political and media establishment. At the heart of Laura's career was her unrelenting willingness to take on the most powerful figures in America. Figures who, in her mind, were hiding behind a veneer of political correctness, misinformation, and hypocrisy. And with that came scandal after scandal. One of the first major controversies came in 2018 when Laura confronted Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Laura, who had already made a name for herself as a fierce critic of the left, turned her attention to Omar, particularly over her controversial views on Israel. Loomer, known for her confrontational style, interrupted a political event where Omar was speaking, calling out the Congresswoman for what she believed were anti-Semitic remarks. This public confrontation was the first of many. Loomer became infamous for not just questioning politicians from a distance, but for confronting them directly, face to face, in real time. Her words were sharp, her presence impossible to ignore, and though it gained her massive media attention, it also cemented her as a polarizing figure. To some, she was a truth-teller, a defender of Jewish rights, a warrior standing up against anti-Semitism. To others, she was nothing more than a provocateur, a disruptor of public order. It wasn't long before her unrelenting confrontations led to her being banned from social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Laura's followers saw this as the latest move in a growing campaign to silence conservative voices. For Loomer, this censorship was not a defeat. It was proof of the establishment's unwillingness to tolerate dissent, and it only fueled her rhetoric. Embracing her newfound position as a martyr for free speech, Laura launched her own campaign to reclaim the platforms that had silenced her. She spoke openly about what she saw as the stifling of conservative viewpoints in mainstream media, painting herself as a victim of a larger, more powerful narrative machine. Her voice, according to Laura, was being suppressed by the elites who controlled the flow of information. But instead of backing down, she took her message to alternative platforms like Parler and Gab, where her message resonated with those who felt they, too, were being silenced. As the controversy around her grew, so did the backlash from within her own political circles. In one of the most unexpected twists of her career, Laura Loomer was kicked off the stage at a prominent conservative event in 2018. She had come to the rally with a powerful message, but what she didn't expect was that her actions would alienate some of the very people who had once championed her. For some conservatives, her unapologetic style was too much. She was too bold, too brash. And this public rejection from conservative peers marked a shift in her career. While others turned their backs on her, Laura doubled down. She became more vocal than ever, saying that her critics were just part of the establishment she had vowed to fight against. In her mind, being kicked off the stage wasn't a failure. It was another victory. After all, she was being punished for speaking truths that others were too afraid to acknowledge. Her defiance culminated in her 2020 run for Congress in Florida's 21st District, a seat once held by Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Loomer's campaign wasn't just about winning a political seat, it was about making a statement. The very fact that she was running as an openly controversial figure was, in her eyes, an act of rebellion. She didn't care if she was criticized. She was ready to shake up Washington, to challenge the system